The Alpha King was supposed to choose my sister, but he walked to me and growled, 'She is mine.' The kingdom of Valtheris was alive with the murmurs of the ancient forests, their silver leaves shimmering under the light of the blood moon. Every 100 years, the kingdom would witness the sacred ritual of the Alpha King's choosing. It was a ceremony steeped in magic and tradition, a spectacle that would decide the fate of not only the royal family, but the entire realm. Lady Seraphine, the elder daughter of House Vera, walked through the marble courtyard with perfect grace. Her golden hair glimmered in the moonlight, and her gown flowed like liquid silver over the cobblestones. Every eye followed her, as expected. She had been raised knowing that the Alpha King would choose her. It was her birthright, her destiny. Elara, her younger sister, followed behind. She was nothing like Seraphine in the eyes of the court. Quieter, smaller, almost invisible in comparison. Her dark hair fell in soft waves across her shoulders, and her green eyes were sharp, always observing, always calculating. She had learned to live in the shadows of her sister's brilliance, never expecting the world to notice her at all. The courtyard was packed with nobles, soldiers, and merchants, all gathered to witness the ancient rite. Banners of deep crimson and silver swayed in the gentle wind, and torches flickered, casting dancing shadows across the polished stones. The air smelled of burning pine and the faint metallic tang of anticipation. The Alpha King, Kale, was late. That was unusual. The court whispered nervously, eyes flicking toward the great obsidian throne at the far end of the courtyard. Rumors had spread about Kale in the years since he had ascended the throne. Stories of his strength, his wisdom, and the way the forest itself seemed to respond to his presence. Few had seen him up close, and those who had rarely spoke of the feeling of awe that came with it. Elara's heart thumped loudly, though she tried to hide it. She was supposed to be invisible, a shadow at the edges of this grand ceremony. Yet, somehow, the pull of the night, the silver glow of the blood moon, made her feel as if something was stirring deep within her. She could not explain it, but a shiver ran down her spine, cold and thrilling. Then he arrived. The ground seemed to tremble with his presence before he even stepped into the courtyard. Kyle, Alpha King of Valtheris, moved with the quiet authority of a predator. His dark cloak swept behind him like a shadow, and his eyes glimmered like molten gold under the moonlight. Every head turned, every whisper stopped, every breath seemed to pause. He was taller than most men, but it was not his height that commanded attention. It was the power that radiated from him, the sense that he could bend the world with nothing more than his will. The noble families bowed their heads instinctively. Soldiers straightened. Even the wind seemed to still. Kale's gaze swept across the courtyard. First, it landed on Seraphine. The court expected a soft smile, a polite nod, the usual display of interest in the daughter of House Vera. But Kale did not stop. His eyes moved past her, past the murmuring nobles, past the anxious glances of mothers and fathers praying for their daughters to be chosen. They fell on Elara. And then he stopped. Elara froze, unable to move. She had never been chosen for anything in her life. She had never been expected to shine. Yet now, the Alpha King himself stood before her, and the air between them felt charged, electric, almost dangerous. The silence was heavy, almost unbearable. "She is mine," Kale said. His voice was deep, low, and yet calm, carrying the weight of authority in something unspoken, something that made Elara's pulse race. It was not a command, it was not a question. It was recognition. The mark appeared on her wrist without warning, a silver sigil that burned faintly under the moonlight. It was the symbol of the Moonheart lineage, rare and powerful. The court gasped, and whispers erupted. The symbol was said to mark one who could bond with the Alpha King in a way that no other could. Seraphine's face fell. Her perfect composure cracked for a moment, and her eyes widened in shock and disbelief. The choice was supposed to be hers. It had been expected for years. But now, everything had shifted. Elara felt a strange heat in her chest. Not fear, not entirely. Something else. Something like recognition. She did not understand it yet, but deep inside, she felt that she had been waiting for this moment all her life, even if she had not known it. Cale stepped closer, and the crowd instinctively took a step back, leaving a clear space around them. His eyes held hers, unblinking, unyielding, and yet there was something in their depths, something that made her feel both terrified and strangely safe at once.
You cannot choose me, Seraphine finally whispered, her voice trembling. It is tradition.
It is expected. Kael did not glance at her. Expectations do not bind me, he said, his voice firm. She is mine, and mine alone. Disbelief mingling with awe. Few had ever seen the Alpha King so decisive, so unwilling to bow to the traditions that had ruled Valtheris for centuries. She should have felt fear, panic, or rejection, but instead, there was a strange clarity. She had been invisible for so long. Now she was not only seen, she was chosen. The power of the Moonheart lineage thrummed through her, a quiet strength that made her feel taller, stronger, alive in a way she had never known. Cale reached out, not touching yet, but his presence pressed against her like gravity. The energy between them was undeniable. It was not just desire. It was recognition, something ancient, something that had been waiting for centuries. The court erupted into whispers. Mothers scolded daughters to keep their composure. Nobles muttered about omens and prophecies. Some knights shifted uneasily, sensing the shift in power that had just occurred. But for Elara, all of that faded. The only thing that existed was the man before her, the blood moon above, and the silver sigil burning softly on her wrist. "Do you understand what this means?" Seraphine's voice trembled. "Do you know what you've done?" Elara looked at her sister, then back at Cale. She did not yet understand everything, but she knew this. Her life had changed forever. And though fear pricked at the edges of her mind, it was overpowered by a strange thrill. She was no longer in the shadows. She was no longer invisible. Cale's lips curved into a faint smile, almost imperceptible, but it sent shivers down her spine. "You will learn," he said softly. But not now. The moment hung between them like a fragile glass orb, sparkling and dangerous. Then the sound of approaching hooves broke the tension. The royal seer, a frail woman with eyes clouded like stormy skies, appeared at the edge of the courtyard. She raised a hand, trembling with age and fear. "The blood moon has awakened the mark," she whispered.
It has chosen its bearer, and the prophecy...
The prophecy begins tonight. Elara felt a chill run down her spine. Prophecy? Magic? Destiny? She had always believed in practical things, books, lessons, rules, but the moment Cale had chosen her, something else had entered her life, something bigger than her, bigger than the court, bigger than the expectations of 1,000 generations. She looked at Cale again. The golden light in his eyes seemed to see through her, into the places she had hidden even from herself. And though the world was full of whispers, judgments, and disbelief, she felt one undeniable truth. She was no longer a shadow. She was no longer a follower. She was chosen. And the blood moon bore witness to it all. Cale extended his hand, not in command, but in invitation. Elara's heart thumped like a drum in her chest. She took a tentative step forward, then another, until her hand rested in his. The crowd fell silent again, watching as the impossible became reality. "You will not regret this," Cale said, his voice low yet resonant with power and promise. Elara wanted to ask how he could be so certain. She wanted to ask why he had chosen her, but something in the way the moonlight kissed his face, in the way the air itself seemed to bend toward them, told her that answers would come in time. For now, there was only this, a bond forged in silver light and destiny, a choice that had defied expectation and tradition. And behind her, she heard Seraphine's quiet sob, a sound that spoke of broken dreams and fractured trust.
Elara did not turn to look, but she felt the weight of it.
She did not know if she would be able to repair the bond with her sister. She only knew that her own journey had begun. As Kale led her away from the courtyard toward the obsidian citadel that crowned the northern cliffs, Elara could not help but glance back one last time. The blood moon hung high above, casting a crimson glow over Valtheris. Shadows twisted in the silver forests, and whispers of prophecy filled the wind. She did not know what awaited her inside the citadel. The Alpha King's court, the secrets of her lineage, the magic that now stirred within her, all of it was unknown, dangerous, and irresistible. But she was ready, because for the first time in her life, she was chosen. And nothing would ever be the same again. The obsidian citadel rose from the northern cliffs like a black crown against the night sky. Its spires cut through the silver fog that rolled off the sea below, and the walls seemed to hum with ancient magic. Inside, corridors wound like veins, lit by flickering torches that cast moving shadows on stone floors. Every step Elara took echoed in the vast hallways, as if the castle itself was alive, watching, and judging her. Kael led her silently. His hand brushed hers sometimes, not quite touching, yet close enough that heat flared under her skin. She could feel the restrained power in his movements, the tension in his muscles, the weight of his authority pressing against her like a tide. She wanted to speak, to ask questions, but his gaze warned her. Patience. All would be revealed in time. When they entered the great hall, Elara felt the full weight of the court's gaze upon her. Nobles in dark cloaks and jeweled gowns sat in rows along the walls, their expressions polite but curious, some even wary. They had expected Seraphine to be the Alpha King's chosen, not the quiet, shadowed younger daughter. Whispers slithered through the room like smoke, curling around her ears. "She walks as if she owns the throne already," a noblewoman murmured to her companion, voice trembling. "She was not meant to be chosen," the companion replied, eyes narrowing. "This will end badly."
Elara kept her head high, though her stomach churned. She had been invisible for most of her life, but now she was the center of attention.
And though the thought terrified her, a small part of her felt alive. The silver mark on her wrist throbbed faintly, a reminder that she had been chosen for something far bigger than herself. Kale stopped at the dais where his throne stood, a massive structure carved from black stone, its arms shaped like wolves frozen mid-howl. He gestured for her to stand before him, and she obeyed. Her knees felt weak, but she held her balance. "You will live here," Kale said quietly. "But understand this. Nothing is as it seems. The court will test you. The nobles will challenge you, and the magic within you will demand more than courage." "I will try." Kale's eyes softened just slightly. "Try is not enough," he said. "You will need to be stronger than you know." She did not yet understand the weight of his words. Strength, she thought, is not in power or skill, but in endurance. She would endure. The first days in the citadel were harsh. Elara learned quickly that nothing about life with the Alpha King would be easy. The servants whispered as she passed, some in awe, some in fear. The warriors of the citadel, clad in silver-trimmed armor, tested her silently with long stares and cold politeness. Even the food felt strange, seasoned with herbs and spices she did not recognize, as if the castle itself were teaching her to adapt to its ways. Kale watched her constantly, though not always openly. Sometimes she would catch him in the reflection of polished marble, eyes sharp and calculating. Other times she would feel the weight of his presence behind her, like a shadow that could pounce at any moment. And yet, When he approached, there was restraint in him, a careful, controlled power, as if he were fighting a battle she could not see. One evening, when the moon hung low and heavy in the sky, he led her to the Tower of Silver Mirrors. The tower's walls were covered in mirrors that reflected not just images, but a faint magic that showed the truth of one's soul. Elara's reflection shimmered with a faint silver glow around her mark. "You must understand what you carry," Kale said, voice low, almost reverent. "The mark on your wrist is not just a sign of choice. It is ancient. It connects you to the Alpha line, to the Moonheart magic that has been lost for centuries." Elara touched her wrist, feeling the heat of the sigil.
"What does it mean?"
she asked, voice trembling.
"It means you are not merely my mate,"
Kale said. "You are something greater. The magic within you can protect the kingdom, or destroy it if not controlled."
"That is why I am cautious.
"That is why I hold back." She looked at him, understanding dawning. You fear the power?" Kale's jaw tightened. "I fear losing myself to it," he admitted. "The first mate I truly love awakens the beast within me, the curse on my line. It will not forgive weakness, hesitation, or rejection. If I lose control, I become something terrible, something no one can stop." Elara's heart ached at the confession. The king, the Alpha, feared himself more than anyone else. And yet, she felt a strange empathy, a pull toward him that went beyond fear or fascination. It was a connection that she could not name, but could feel deep in her bones. "I will help you," she said softly. "I will learn." Kale's eyes met hers, and for a moment the mask of the Alpha cracked. She saw the loneliness, the restraint, the centuries of burden he carried, and something inside her stirred, an urge to be more than a follower, more than someone protected. She wanted to stand beside him, not behind him. The court began to test her almost immediately. Nobles who had once adored Seraphine now looked at Elara with suspicion, questioning her ability, her lineage, even her character. "She is too quiet," a duke whispered. "She has no presence. How can she command the loyalty of the pack?" "She will fail," another said. "The mark may glow, but it does not make her strong." Elara heard it all, but she did not respond. She observed, listened, learned. The Citadel had rules, and she intended to understand them before challenging them. But even as she adapted, the whispers followed her. One day, Seraphine arrived at the gates of the Citadel, escorted by a small group of nobles who still supported her claim. Her face was pale, her eyes stormy with anger and disbelief. "You have no right!" she called from the steps. "The Alpha King was meant to choose me." Elara stepped forward, steady and calm. "Perhaps he chose differently," she said. "Perhaps he saw something you could not." Seraphine's lips trembled, but her voice was sharp. "This is not over, little sister. The throne is my destiny, and I will not give it up so easily." The tension between the sisters was a knife edge. Elara felt a pang of sorrow. She had always admired Seraphine, had followed her example, had wanted her sister's approval. And now, standing here, she realized that admiration was tangled with fear, and with power she had never sought but could not deny. Kale appeared at her side, and Seraphine recoiled slightly. There was no fear in his eyes, only a quiet authority. "She is under my protection," he said, "and under my guidance. That is all you need to know." Seraphine's eyes flashed with anger, but she stepped back. For now, days turned into weeks, and Elara began to grow into her new role. She trained with the warriors of the Citadel, learning sword and strategy, understanding the strength needed to survive, not just physically, but politically. She began to sense the faint magic that lived in the walls, the stones, the air itself. The mark on her wrist pulsed when she concentrated, and under Kale's guidance, she began to channel it. Kale was patient but distant. His hands brushed hers occasionally, a reminder of the connection they shared, but he never allowed familiarity beyond that. He was fighting something within himself, and she knew it. The restraint in him was not rejection, it was protection, both for himself and for her. One night, as the blood moon reached its peak, Kale led her to the Moonlight Garden, a courtyard filled with silver-leafed trees that shimmered under the moon. Wolves padded silently at the edges, their golden eyes watching, alert but calm. "Tonight you will feel the magic more fully," Kale said.
But you must be ready. It is not gentle.
It does not forgive hesitation.
Elara nodded, heart pounding.
She placed her hands on the silver bark of a tree, closed her eyes, and let the magic flow. She felt warmth, power, and a strange pull toward Kale. The energy between them was undeniable, a current of strength and emotion that neither fully understood. Kale placed a hand lightly on her shoulder.
"Do not fear it," he said. "It is part of you."
"Part of us."
"Oh," I asked. He opened her eyes and met his gaze. Something unspoken passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of danger, responsibility, and the beginnings of trust, and perhaps something deeper.
Yet, even as she learned, even as her powers grew, Seraphine's shadow loomed. The princess had not left quietly. She gathered allies, whispered promises, and plotted quietly in the court below. Elara knew this. She felt it in the tension in the air, in the stares of nobles, in the faint flicker of unease among the warriors. The sisters' rivalry was no longer just personal, it was political, and as the full moon reflected off the obsidian spires of the citadel, Elara understood that she had entered a world where every choice mattered, every glance held weight, and every secret could tip the balance between power and destruction. Yet for all the uncertainty, one thing was clear. She was no longer invisible. She was chosen. She had a purpose. And for the first time, she felt ready to step into the role destiny had carved for her. Even if the path was dangerous, unknown, and filled with enemies, both seen and hidden. The moon hung high over the obsidian citadel, a cold silver eye in the sky. Its light spilled over the towers and the silver-leafed moonlight garden, casting shadows that twisted and stretched like living things. Inside the castle, silence pressed heavily against the walls, broken only by the soft sounds of Elara's footsteps as she walked the corridors alone. Though she had grown accustomed to the court and its unspoken tests, something had changed in the last few days. The magic within her pulsed stronger, faster, reacting to her emotions in ways she could not control. Her silver mark burned faintly, like a heartbeat against her skin, and sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she could feel the pull of Kale's own power, raw, restrained, dangerous, like a tide threatening to drown her. She had seen the shift in him too. Kale's restraint was beginning to falter. Sometimes in the training halls, his movements were sharper than necessary, almost feral. Other times at night she would glimpse the storm behind his golden eyes, a force barely held back. Even his voice had grown darker, low and warning, as if something within him stirred whenever she was near.
You must control yourself, he had said one evening in the Tower of Silver Mirrors, his voice tight with frustration. The magic you carry is dangerous.
So is mine. If you falter, I could lose myself, and the kingdom could fall. Elara nodded, her own fear trembling beneath her calm exterior. She had never faced something so immense, so alive and frightening at the same time. She did not want to frighten him. She did not want to be the cause of destruction. But as she trained, as she focused, she realized something else. She was not weak. She was not merely a vessel of the magic. She was learning to wield it, and that frightened some more than anyone knew. Meanwhile, beyond the walls of the citadel, Seraphine was gathering allies. She had returned to her noble supporters and whispered words of outrage, betrayal, and destiny.
The Alpha King was never meant to choose her,
she told them, voice trembling with determination.
Elara is weak. She cannot lead. I will see the throne restored to its rightful heir.
A shadowed figure, cloaked in midnight silk, approached her quietly. The king's power is bound to the moon heart magic, the figure whispered, a note of warning in their voice. If you wish to claim the throne, you must manipulate it, twist it. The girl is dangerous, yes, but not invincible.
Seraphina's lips curled into a thin smile.
For the first time, she felt hope. Perhaps she could reclaim what had been stolen. Perhaps the throne would belong to her after all. Back inside the citadel, Kale's restraint began to crack. One evening, during training in the Hall of Shadows, a sword slipped through Elara's defense. He caught it midair, his strength surging without intention. She felt the power in him ripple through the hall like a living thing, and for a moment, she glimpsed the beast within, the Alpha King as he had been in the legends, unstoppable, untamed, terrifying.
I feel it, the magic, the storm inside you.
Kael's jaw tightened. I do this to protect you, he said. I will not allow the curse to consume me. I will not allow it to hurt you. But hiding from it doesn't work, Elara said softly. You cannot fight what you are. You must face it. And let me help.
The room fell silent, except for the soft echo of their breathing.
Kale stared at her, and she could see the struggle within him, the pull between restraint and surrender, between duty and desire, between fear and trust. The tension between them was nearly unbearable. You may not be ready, he said finally. But the curse, it senses weakness. It grows stronger when love is denied. I fear it will rise fully if I fail to control it.
Elara stepped closer. Then let me stand with you.
Do not fight alone. For a moment, the golden storm in his eyes softened, and something unspoken passed between them. Trust, understanding, a bond that went beyond choice or duty. And then he turned, leaving her in the hall as if nothing had changed. Yet everything had. Days later, the warning signs of the curse became impossible to ignore. Kale's nights grew restless. Sometimes the golden glow in his eyes would flare into amber, and his body would tremble as if fighting a battle unseen. The wolves in the citadel reacted instinctively, growling, bristling, then bowing when he regained control. Elara could feel it too. The magic in her mark pulsed with a stronger rhythm, responding to his turmoil. And though she tried to suppress her fear, she realized something terrifying. She was part of the curse's awakening. If Kael lost himself completely, she could not stop the destruction alone. She sought him one night in the moonlight garden. The silver trees glimmered under the full moon, and the air was thick with tension. Kael stood at the center, his back rigid, eyes glowing faintly golden, hands trembling as he stared at the moon.
You are fighting it, Elara said softly, stepping closer. Do not fight alone.
Let me share it with you. Kael turned, and she saw the struggle etched across his face. Fear, anger, longing, and something vulnerable he rarely showed anyone. If I lose myself, he whispered, the kingdom, the people, everything will fall. I cannot let it happen.
You will not, Elara said. Not if we face it together. He hesitated, then slowly, carefully, extended his hand.
The connection was immediate, like a spark igniting within both of them. The magic pulsed between them, silver and gold intertwining in the moonlight. Kale's storm calmed slightly under her presence, though the danger remained, simmering beneath the surface. But Seraphine's schemes were not idle. She had discovered secrets of the Citadel, whispers of magic hidden in the archives, and she was ready to strike. One night, while the Alpha King struggled to control the beast within him, Seraphine confronted Alara in the halls.
You think you belong here?
Seraphine's voice was sharp, trembling with anger.
You are nothing but a shadow. The throne is mine. Alara held her ground.
The throne is not yours to claim through anger or fear. You cannot take what is not given to you. Seraphine's eyes glinted with a dangerous light. I will see you removed, even if it costs everything. As she spoke, a faint shimmer of dark magic appeared in her hands, a spell she had learned in secret from her shadowed ally. It rippled through the air, and the castle itself seemed to respond, shadows curling toward her as if obeying. Alara felt the pull immediately, a strange tug at her magic, at her connection to Kale. She knew this was the moment when power and choice would collide.
You cannot control this, Alara said, taking a deep breath. But you can choose to stop. Seraphine hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing her face.
But ambition and pride outweighed it, and the spell surged forward. Alara acted instinctively. The silver mark on her wrist flared, and a wave of moonheart magic surged through her. The spell was absorbed, redirected, and the shadows retreated, trembling under the strength of her power. Seraphine stumbled, anger giving way to shock.
You are stronger than I imagined,
Seraphine hissed. This is not over. Alara did not respond. She turned, sensing Kale's presence behind her, and together, the two of them faced the threat as one. The bond between them pulsed visibly in the moonlight, magic and trust intertwining. The next morning, the court murmured about the confrontation. Nobles who had doubted Alara whispered nervously, reassessing her. Kale remained distant but present, a silent warning to anyone who questioned her right to stand at his side. The wolves in the courtyard prowled closer to her now, sensing her growing strength. But the danger was far from over. The curse had not been defeated, it had only been held at bay. Kale's restraint remained fragile, and the presence of Seraphine's dark magic hinted at larger threats yet to come. Alara understood this. The choice she had made, to step into the bond, to embrace her magic, was not simple. It carried responsibility, risk, and the constant pressure of the unseen forces that sought to manipulate the kingdom. But she no longer feared her own power. She had accepted it. She had accepted herself. And she had accepted Kale, even in his struggle, even in his fear, as something more than a king, more than an alpha. He was a man burdened by destiny, yes, but also a man capable of love, trust, and partnership. Together, they had faced their first real challenge. Together, they had survived. Yet even as they stood side by side in the moonlight garden, a shadow moved beyond the walls of the citadel. The whisper of dark magic lingered in the wind, and Seraphine's promise echoed in the silent corridors. She would not surrender, she would not fail, and the throne would be hers, no matter the cost. Alara knew, with a sinking certainty, that the greatest battles were yet to come, not just against external enemies, but against the curse that threatened to consume Kale, against the growing tension in the court, and against the fragile ties of family and loyalty that were already beginning to fracture. The night was darker than usual. Clouds roamed the sky like wandering spirits, and the blood moon, once bright and full, was partially hidden behind the shadows, casting the obsidian citadel in a dim, silver gloom. Within the halls, tension hung heavier than the stones themselves. Whispers of prophecy, magic, and betrayal had grown louder with each passing day. Alara walked through the moonlight garden, her mark glowing faintly on her wrist, a steady heartbeat of silver light. She could feel the pulse of Kale's power resonating with hers, stronger than ever, yet strained by the awakening curse within him. Tonight, she knew, would be the night the true test came, not for her alone, but for the kingdom, for Kale, and even for her sister, Seraphine. The Alpha King emerged from the shadows, his golden eyes flashing against the dim light. His shoulders were tense, jaw tight, yet there was a quiet strength in him that steadied Ilara's heart. "The curse is reaching its peak," he said softly. "I can feel it stirring inside me stronger than ever. If I do not fight it, I will lose myself. And perhaps everything we've tried to protect." Ilara stepped closer, hand brushing against his.
You are not alone, she whispered. I am here.
"The magic, it is ours together. We will face it, Kael as one." He studied her, searching, weighing, and then finally nodded. "Then we begin," he said, voice low but firm. The castle stirred with energy. Shadows twisted in corners, the torches flickered unnaturally, and the wolves of the citadel prowled closer, sensing the approaching storm. The court had gathered in silence, sensing that something monumental was about to unfold. Even Seraphine, who had secretly returned with dark allies, waited in the shadows, her pale face set with determination.
You cannot stop me, Seraphine whispered to herself, voice carrying over the wind.
"The throne is mine. It has always been mine. She will not stand in my way." Ilara felt it. The pulse of her sister's ambition, the tug of her power, and the looming threat of betrayal. The moonheart magic inside her hummed in response, a protective shield against the darkness Seraphine wielded. Kael stepped forward, placing a hand lightly on Ilara's shoulder. The contact grounded her.
"Remember," he said, "the magic is not just power. It is unity, understanding, trust."
"Use it wisely."
Ilara nodded.
She had trained for this moment, learned to channel her energy, and accepted the responsibility that came with the mark. But even with knowledge and courage, she knew this would be a battle of wills, hearts, and destiny. The first confrontation came suddenly. From the shadows, Seraphine raised her hands, summoning dark strands of magic that whipped through the garden like living chains. The wolves bristled and growled, sensing the threat. Ilara's silver mark flared, and a wave of moonheart energy rippled outward. The chains slowed, twisted, and broke apart before they could reach her. She felt Kael's power behind her, steady and strong, pushing against the dark magic, reinforcing hers. Together, they formed a barrier of silver and gold light, forcing the shadows backward. "Stop this, Seraphine!" Ilara called, voice steady but commanding.
"You don't have to fight me. You don't have to destroy everything for the throne."
You think you can reason with me? I've waited my whole life for what was stolen from me.
"I will not stop." The clash intensified. The air hummed with energy, shadows twisting against silver light. The moonheart magic within Ilara pulsed, and she could feel it reacting not only to her will, but to her emotions, her fear, her sorrow, her longing for peace with her sister. Kael's strength surged beside her, but even he was struggling to keep the beast within him restrained.
"You are stronger than I imagined," Seraphine hissed, her hands trembling with effort. "But it is not enough."
"The throne will be mine." Ilara took a deep breath, letting the calm she had learned over weeks settle in her chest. "Power alone does not make a ruler," she said softly. "It is compassion, courage, and understanding, something you cannot see when your heart is full of anger." Her words, simple and true, seemed to reach the shadow around Seraphine. The dark magic wavered, flickering against the glow of the moonheart energy. For a brief moment, Seraphine hesitated, uncertainty crossing her face, a crack in her resolve. Kael seized the moment. He stepped forward, eyes glowing gold, hands raised, not to strike, but to reinforce Ilara's magic. Together, they formed a bond stronger than either could wield alone. The Moonheart energy swirled around them like a storm of silver and gold, and the shadows recoiled. Seraphine's allies faltered, unable to stand against the combined power of Alpha and Moonheart. Her dark magic dissipated under the sheer force of unity and courage. Seraphine herself staggered, anger giving way to shock. Elara approached her slowly, holding her hands open in peace.
"It doesn't have to end in hate," she said. "I am your sister."
"We can fix this together." Seraphine's eyes filled with tears, the first real emotion breaking through the anger and ambition.
I just wanted to be chosen," she whispered. "I wanted to be seen, to be enough." She stepped closer, reaching for her sister's hands. "You are enough," she said.
And you are seen. You always have been.
But power taken through fear only destroys, not protects. You can choose another path, one of healing, not destruction. For a long moment, Seraphine trembled, torn between pride and the truth of her sister's words. Finally, the shadows around her weakened, and the dark magic faded, leaving her unarmed, but not defeated. Kael stepped forward as well, placing a steady hand on Seraphine's shoulder. "The throne is not given to anger," he said. "It is claimed through wisdom, courage, and unity. If you wish, you can stand with us, or you can step away."
Seraphine lowered her head, swallowing hard.
For the first time, she saw that the power she had chased so relentlessly was not in domination. It was in choice, in trust, in love, and in loyalty. The storm of the curse subsided, not because it was defeated, but because it had been faced openly, with acceptance and with unity. Kael's golden eyes returned to their usual brilliance. The beast restrained not by force, but by the connection he shared with Elara. The Moonheart magic pulsed faintly on her wrist, a quiet reminder that their bond had saved not just the kingdom, but themselves. The court watched in silence, witnessing a miracle. Elara, once the shadowed younger sister, had not only survived, but had grown into a leader of strength and compassion. Kael, the Alpha King, stood beside her, restrained and powerful, but no longer tormented by the beast within. Even Seraphine, humbled yet still proud, had begun the first steps toward reconciliation. The silver forests around the citadel seemed to exhale, the moonlight reflecting off the towers and leaves, bathing the kingdom in a sense of peace. For the first time in generations, the Alpha King's choice and the Moonheart's magic were in harmony. Later, in the Moonlight Garden, Elara and Kael stood together, hands entwined, watching the moon break through the clouds.
"You faced it bravely," Kael said softly.
Not just the magic, but everything. Your fears, the court, your sister. You are stronger than I could have imagined.
I had a guide, she said. Someone who didn't run from his own power.
And someone who trusted me even when it was dangerous.
I trust you completely, and I never want to lose you.
Elara felt warmth bloom in her chest, a quiet happiness, tempered by the trials they had endured. "You won't," she said.
Not if we face everything together.
Seraphine approached quietly, standing a few steps away. She looked at her sister and Kael, a faint smile breaking across her face. I see now, she said softly. Perhaps I have been wrong. I will work to earn trust, not power, through fear.
It will not be easy, but I will try.
Elara nodded.
That is all anyone can ask. You are still my sister.
There is hope for all of us, and in that moment, the three of them, Alpha, Moonheart, and Sister, stood together beneath the blood moon, the silver forests whispering promises of new beginnings. The kingdom was not free of challenges, but the darkness that had threatened it had been faced with courage, magic, and love. The future, though uncertain, was brighter than it had been in generations. Final emotional note. The Alpha King no longer feared his own beast. The Moonheart magic had found its partner in Ilara, not as a threat, but as a force of unity. The sisters had faced betrayal, ambition, and pride, and discovered that love and understanding were stronger than fear. And as the blood moon faded behind the clouds, Ilara felt the quiet stirrings of destiny yet to come, knowing that together they could meet whatever challenges awaited, the kingdom, the bond, and their hearts were ready for the future.